Buenos dias, buenas tardes, y buenas noches. Bonjour, bonsoir, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you may be. Jay Slater case. And chosen background of the day for this July the 9th broadcast is a certain, if I get my big fat head out of the way, a certain Chris Kinnaird from Glasgow, who, November of 2025, was duly convicted and sentenced for the caption is cut off here, but it's all about the usual stuff you might imagine from a Glasgow gang: arms dealing and cocaine supply and all the rest of it. All round badass, nasty guy. Chris Kinnaird. Chris Kinnaird is the name. Now, there are several Kinnairds that pop up in the history of crime in Glasgow. I mention this. I mention this because in my last post or a recent post, I featured a friend of Brad's and a friend of Rach's, a guy called Shane Murray, who on Facebook was engaged in communication with a certain Hugh Kinnaird. And Hugh Kinnaird up in Glasgow, I've got to say, can't see anything on Hugh Kinnaird. It is just the family name that is connected to Glasgow crime. But there are quite a few of them. And if you go to the electoral roll and you see which Kinnairds have the same residence as others, you can see that a fair number of the crime family are indeed connected to the likes of Hugh Kinnaird. So it is not a connection I would say is very, very strong, but it is likely, I would say, that the Kinnairds in Glasgow that Shane Murray is dealing with in his land of, you know, thievery, crookery, if that's a word, wheeling and dealing, involves this crime family. So let's just run through three names that pop up very easily. This guy, Chris Kinnaird. There's a Jason Kinnaird who was given a life sentence. Could you believe it or not? How many life sentences do you hear of these days? Life sentence. He was given that from the High Court in Glasgow, of course, August of 2010. He stabbed his friend to death. Yeah, that's what you get when you're a friend of Jason Kinnaird. So Chris Kinnaird here, arms supply, cocaine supply. Jason Kinnaird in 2010, Glasgow High Court sentenced, life sentence for stabbing. James Kinnaird. Now, the interesting story with James Kinnaird is that in 2007, he was run down and stabbed in Glasgow, of course. So he was the victim of crime. James Kinnaird was a victim of crime. But in those situations, you always ask yourself, why? Why was it that he was run down and stabbed? What had he done? Well, it turns out that, quoting from the press, it says the attack is believed to have been in revenge for the murder of Jamie Campbell, who was killed, shot to death in his own vehicle on Essenside in Drumchapel. So it seems like in that case, James Kinnaird had a Drumchapel connection. And I will put out a post later tonight or tomorrow at some point that kind of cements this Drumchapel connection with the Kinnairds, with the crime organization in Glasgow, with this type of, narco activity, gun running, and all the rest of it. Now, I'm not saying that anyone that lives in Drumchapel would necessarily have a connection to this. Of course not. Of course not. But just a reminder, we are left speculating on what possible connections could be involved in the Jay Slater case, purely because the likes of Ivor Lovelace, Chris Pennington, those in the accident group that know the truth, they refuse to reveal the truth. And in the absence of truth, it is human nature to speculate and try to figure out, well, what could be a possible explanation? So, part of my effort here is to say a possible explanation of why a big time accident group member who didn't used to be, used to be that Gobshite, now Janie 180, used to be Gobshite, was very much foul play group. And I'm always interested by those that switch from one side to the other, not as a gradual progress, more information has come in that has, swayed me in this direction. I'm always fascinated by those people that start here. Yeah, I believe Jay Slater's death was caused by either foul play or criminality was in the background of it. Yeah. Even if it was an accident, there's criminality, there's foul play that led up to the accident. And then those people that suddenly switch without any explanation, there's never been an explanation from Janie, from Bea, from any of these people why they suddenly went from, yeah, accident, foul play, foul play, foul play to accident, accident, accident. You've got to ask yourself why. What has happened in the background that has caused that change of mind? And all I'm suggesting here is when you hear Drumchapel, you should think not only Gobshite, and Gobshite's son, and all the rest of them, you should think Kinnairds, maybe Rach, Brad, Shane Murray, Kinnaird family in Glasgow, Drumchapel. Maybe it is a connection that makes sense, and maybe it isn't. Now, we're all here happy to be corrected, as always. But I do find in the accident group, it's rare. It is so rare that someone steps forward to say, I see your thinking, Duncan, but this is where you are speculating, and I can give you the facts that will show you you're wrong. That almost never happens. We speculate, we leave it out there, and no one corrects a thing. Now, on the opposite end of this equation, and this is why, call me a math geek or something, but I've always liked equations, especially the geometric ones. You've got a certain amount of information, you know certain rules that apply. Can you find out the answers, the information that's missing? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But on the other end of this equation, there is this fascination I have with you've got Gobshite, who I believe she has said, yeah, I was in Tenerife that year. Now, I'm not sure about that. So we're looking for Gobshite from Glasgow, from Drumchapel, to say, no, 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 I wasn't in Tenerife in 2024. If I said that, that was a mistake. So when was she there? But more importantly, perhaps, we do know that son of Gobshite, the same one that pops up in USA, in Vietnam, in Brazil, it seems all with the same pal, the same chum. Yeah, is he the one that is connected to Tenerife and some kind of underworld? I don't know. All I can tell you is things that I've picked up on. We were told by Gobshite herself that in 2024, and I believe it is the same time that Jay Slater was missing during the search for Jay Slater. Might have been just before, might have been just after. I don't know, I don't recall. But I do recall Gobshite saying that, yeah, her son, he was over there on Tenerife, and the big event was the girlfriend's family member wedding. Because when you are the boyfriend of a girl who's got a family member wedding, you're always invited to go to Tenerife for that, aren't you? And yeah, could well be true. Could well be true. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Gobshite Jr., yeah, does have a girlfriend that is in Tenerife, lives in Tenerife. Is this kind of Brandon-esque, like, you know, UK person that has just chosen to live in Tenerife? Could be. There's a wedding, and Gobshite Jr. is over there. Now, the thing about this story that always interested me was, I think I asked at some point, I said, so, could it have been that your son was up in the mountains, the Masca Mountains, when Jay went missing? And the answer was interesting. Very interesting. Came back from Gobshite. He was like, "Oh, my son, no, he never went up there. He never went up to the mountain." And I was like, "Well, how would you know? Unless you were in Tenerife for the same wedding at the same time, unless you've got 24/7 surveillance CCTV on Gobshite Jr., the son, how would you know where he went?" You see, I would have thought the answer to that question, the honest answer to that question, would have been, "I have no idea." It could have been there. My son could have been there 23 hours out of 24 every day. I've no idea where he was. I don't actually monitor the movements 24/7 of my adult son. But interestingly enough, Gobshite's answer was no, he wasn't up there in the mountains. He didn't go there. Well, maybe he did. Maybe he did. Maybe you don't know Gobshite. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he would never dream of going to Muscat. Maybe, of course, probably Gobshite Jr. is not involved in this. But like I say, with vacuum, in the absence of evidence, with all those stones out there that haven't been unturned, I'm just saying, could there be this Drumchapel crime connection that flows on through to Tenerife? And is that the explanation why Gobshite magically went one day from, oh yeah, this is obviously foul play, to, oops, I'd better say it's an accident? because someone might be on my back saying, shut up. I don't know. I got no idea. I'm just saying what I see. But it is interesting. It is, we've got this Shane Murray guy. He's communicating with Hugh Kinnaird, Kinnaird family. It's, Glasgow Drumchapel. Does it amount to anything? Don't know. We've also got a brother of Gobshite that who knows what he's up to. I've got a feeling that guy's a Londoner. Don't know why. Um, so yeah, maybe someone to look into there. Hey, this can all be put to bed with a statement of the truth, just saying this is the reality, these are the facts. The other oddity with Gobshite Jr. is that we're told over and over again how phenomenally wealthy and successful he is. I mean, the guy doesn't look that old, to be honest. We got Gobshite in her late 50s. No, so we got a youngish guy, drives a Mercedes, Gobshite tells us. Yeah, got cash aplenty, got his Mercedes, driving around Glasgow, man about town, off on his holes, not with the girlfriend. That's another oddity. He went to Tenerife for the girlfriend's family wedding. No mention of the girlfriend since then. No, obviously, no pic of the girlfriend. Girlfriend is long gone. It's the same pal or the same chum, it seems to be, that travels around with Gobshite Jr. Oh, and I do recall that when they went to USA for the football, there was mention of a phenomenally wealthy connection who had a massive, great mansion in Brooklyn. Of course, whenever there's any mention of riches and wealth, Gobshite can't resist spreading that around there. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is Sugar Ape's sausage party, was that happening in Brooklyn in the mansion of, big shot, whoever it was that provided accommodation and all that for Gobshite Jr.? I don't know. I'm just saying there is a certain underworld profession that goes with being Swish, having plenty of cash, driving around in a Mercedes, traveling the world as you wish when you're very young. Yeah, it might not be that it's all legitimate profession. It might be that it's something that, is a little bit risque. I don't know. I'm putting it out there as a suggestion and nothing more. But as I dig into this, if I come up with anything, well, I've got one more thing that is fairly concrete. It is concrete with the Kinnairds and Drumchapel. But if I come up with anything that is, I think, convincingly concrete that ties in Gobshite's story with Shane Murray's story with the Jay Slater story, I'll let you know. Because we're coming to the end of this line of inquiry. There is one other aspect that fascinates me, and that is the Scottish DJs. The Scottish DJs, the type of people that wear the Swish watches, the Scottish DJs that probably have contacts with the underworld in the Glasgow area. Is there a Scottish DJ that is also involved with this that could possibly know someone like Gobshite Jr.? I don't know, but for example, the name of Doherty comes to mind. That's an avenue that I would like to explore too, because I think in all the blabber about Black Traffic, who I think is Irish, I've just got a feeling that weren't there like two or three big name Scottish DJs? I mean, maybe they are connected as well. The thing that bothers me about this case is we haven't really got a clue, not even a sniff, of who might be, if you believe Jay Slater was done in, if his life was taken away, who actually did that. Because I've always thought it's some kind of henchman, some mad Moroccan that is, paid to do that. I don't think it's Ayub out there. I don't think it's Rocky, with a shovel. No, I don't think that's how Jay lost his life. But I'm wondering who exactly would have been the person to set that all up. It might not have been Ayub World, might not have been Rocky World, might not have been Roman World, might have been someone else. Connected to the UK, large sum of money at stake. I don't know. I'm just saying the DJs, if we knew more about them and who they knew and what was at stake for them, we might be onto something. Probably not. This shirt, I believe, is the fifth one that I've worn in 2 weeks. I did see something from the accident group the other day that said I only have 4 shirts. I'm sure this is number 5. I'm sure there's 5. I'll do another count at some point, but I think accident group, you got it wrong again. I'm pretty sure there's 5. I am the proud owner, not of a Mercedes, but of 5 shirts, I think. In answer to the question, do I spend a lot of time looking at? I think Gobshite's word is, do I stalk the Facebook accounts and the YouTube accounts, the YouTube channels, and all that of the accident group? Oh, of course I do. You bet. I'm on there. If stalk means looking carefully at, yeah, I do look very carefully at everything that's put out there and everything that's said, every word, little details I pick up on. For example, in one post, Gobshite actually misspells her favorite sport, Aikido. She's written Aikdo, A-I-K, yeah, Aikdo. She missed the middle I. Little things like that I do spot, but I have to look at word for word everything that is said. So, yeah, if anyone's wondering, how does he spend all this, how much time does he spend looking at the opposition? Know thy enemy and know thy enemy damn well. Because when you lock swords and go into battle, you've got to know strengths, weaknesses, and where the openings are. So, yes, of course, I spend a lot of time looking at those channels, those pages, and those words. All right, let's leave it there. Happy Independence Day for tomorrow, those that are in the Bahamas and already celebrating, probably. I'm about to. Hasta luego, adios, hasta la vista. See you next time.